right, I motion that we call the meeting to order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. All right, we begin with public comment. We have no public comment. So, Ms. King, you wanna do the PTO update?
Yes, so Chick-fil-A last Friday, we sold 175 chicken biscuits and drinks with a profit of $165. The fall festival planning is in full effect. PTO will be posting business sponsorship opportunities online tomorrow through the PTO website, Facebook, and Instagram. The Art to Remember fundraiser order forms with students' artwork will be going home in Tuesday folders at the end of the month. And they just received a new shipment of the Maverick t-shirts has come in, so they have all sizes back in stock for the new spirit wear.
Very good. We'll transition to principals update.
Okay, so for the dashboard, I kind of split it and put the map data on a separate, slide, so, you can see everything up here. Attendance, we were up, but there are some grade levels. 4th and 5th, we have, we don't know if the parents are just not sending in excuse notes or, what's going on there, so we're going to give 4th and 5th grade some support. 8th grade, we had 2 8th graders that had the highest, absenteeism, but one withdrew and one is no longer at the school. So attendance should hopefully look even better next month. Discipline is looking really good because what we are finding, especially in the lower school, is that some of the referrals that we're getting, teachers have not made any kind of contact home, have not put any kind of plan in place. So then the deans are going back to those teachers and giving them some training, before we put that office referral into Infinite Campus. So discipline's looking pretty good. We also started, the restorative practices training, with 2nd grade, 6th grade, school counselor, and myself and the 2 deans, which is really awesome because it's 80% proactive and 20% reactive. So you have these circles, these community circle times, which for lower school is morning meetings, and for upper school are community circles. And then when you do have an issue, then you can have a restorative circle. We've actually done those. Donna Reynolds did one with a parent and a student that went really, really well. I've done a couple with some staff members that have had some issues with each other. So we're really excited about the restorative practices training, and then when we do have some pretty big offenses or any offense, putting a restorative circle in place with an action plan. Any questions on this part?
I have questions over in the financial space. Are you still getting to that, or can we, is now the time to ask
Go for it.
questions? So, the cash balance. I mean, I know that last month we had sort of that unexplained windfall where we had a lot more cash. It looks like that has maintained itself. Where'd all the money come from?
I guess the million is what Mike was talking about, how after last year we were gonna have about $1 million there. We're in the process of, Celesta and I met today with, the accountant, which we'll discuss more in executive session.
Sure.
Cause there's some things that we just need to get better on top of when it comes to the finance part.
Do you think that cash balance is accurate, or do we have liabilities that are out there that we're not capturing?
I am not really sure at this point. Because even here where we were saying, hey, at this point, we'll have a fund balance of almost 10,000, and we're sitting at 43,000, so that was, a question I had today. Just like, we have all this extra money, so, we're in the process of making sure all of this is accurate.
Okay. What's the next steps with that? The next steps with that? Are you guys having another meeting scheduled?
Yes, yeah, which we'll talk all,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I guess I'm still scratching my head on. So even though we're seeing the discipline infractions much better, the RTIs still are staying high. I guess that makes sense, right? So the disciplinary, basically we're saying that the RTIs and restorative practices are doing their job in preventing disciplinary infractions from occurring.
Well, when you're talking RTI, you're talking, it's not just behavior issues, you're talking academic struggles.
Okay.
You're talking students that you're putting interventions in place, could be behavior, but more of ours are probably academic. So you're putting interventions in place to see if the student's making progress on those interventions. If they are, you just keep doing interventions. If they're not, then you say, okay, do we need to go further and look at possibly testing for special education services? So a lot of this is more so probably academic than it is, because you can put students through the RTI process due to behavior, but ours is more academic struggles than anything.
Do we wanna break that out to know that difference?
Like how many are academic
Yeah.
versus
Mhm.
behavior?
Yeah,
So then.
Would that be-
Like the number.
Sure, we can do that. Just gonna make a note.
it's just another insight.
And then I only ask this because some of the other, I heard something from another state charter school that they started to hear a little information on, CCRPI. Have we started to hear any information yet on our last year's?
I haven't, but I haven't looked in the portal. I didn't look at the portal last week for CCRPI, but I can check that out. Yeah. And this year, so I joined, it's called the Leadership Advisor Program. The State Charter School Commission actually offers this free to state charter leaders. And they assign every leader that enters it an advisor. So I have been in contact with my advisor. She has been a school leader under a state charter school, and she's moved on, so there's like 6 advisors. So she's coming here Friday to spend the day with me. She'll be here from like 9 to 2. One of the things that she's going to do, had a 30-minute conversation with her on the phone last week. I'm really excited about this because she just asked about our school, our board, like everything. So she's gonna come in, and it's literally just for her to give constructive feedback. Where can I improve? What can, putting in some action plans. And she said one thing we're gonna do next week, because State Charter School is coming in September the 17th, around 9 o'clock that morning, and they'll be here about 3 hours. I've submitted all the documentation they needed. I had until August the 12th to do that, but she said one of the things we'll do is make sure everything's in order and that we're fully prepared to state charter to come in the door, but I'm really excited about that because we meet like once a month. So we had a webinar last week and just talked about what the program is, so I'm really excited about that, so she can give me more guidance in some of my weaker areas. So I'm looking forward to that. Any other questions? Okay, we have administered fall map data, so I know Mike did the top quartile and the bottom quartile, but I did it, Matt breaks it up into a percentage of students in the top 20% compared to students in that grade level nationwide, and students in the bottom 20%. So I gathered this data. So kindergarten looks really, really strong. We don't have any in the bottom quartile, in the bottom 20% for math, and only 2%. But right here, that's an area of growth for kindergarten. So students performing in the top 20%, we outperformed the national norm in 21 out of 25 categories. Students in the bottom 20%, we outscored the norm in 19 of 25 categories. Some of our focus points need to be second grade, in all subjects, reading, math, and language usage.
It's amazing that they're heavily distributed in the top quintile and the bottom quintile.
Correct, so.
Or could that be
Just
from
no one
last
in the
year, how
middle.
they got behind a little bit
Well, and
last
I was
year?
gonna say, these are the first graders that Mike talked about last year. You had one teacher that was pretty strong with the workshop model, and then you had one teacher that was not so strong. So that could affect that. Seventh grade, these are the sixth graders from last year. Those are gonna be two of our focus areas. We have started, this morning, we started upper school math lab. Ms. Tyberski and Ms. Kessler are running that. And Ms. Tyberski had a good percentage of students in there, so she sent me a couple of pictures. We had quite a few students in there. Ms. Moppin and Ms. McDonald, Wednesday, are starting the upper school reading lab. So they've contacted parents of students that just need that additional support. So that will be in place, and hopefully we can pull some of these seventh graders, up where they need to be.
Sixth grade math, I mean, so the seventh grade, I'm not surprised.
Sixth grade,
Sixth grade math, what's up?
I was a little shocked by this because I had these fifth graders, and that's a pretty high group of identified gifted students, as well as just high-performing students. So I'm not really sure what was going on. And even here, they had 21% in the bottom 20%.
Hit it on both ends.
Mm-hmm. So that's the one grade level that did kind of take me by surprise.
So the bottom 20% or lower is like they're in the 20%.
That's the bottom quintile, so we have more kids in the bottom than should be.
Then compared nationally to other,
And we have
sixth
fewer
graders.
in the top than
Right.
should be.
right. So like in reading, you have, obviously reading is their strong suit because you had 42% in the top and you had only 13% in the bottom. And language is pretty strong, but that math.
I mean, I'm afraid of being naive here, but when I look at that, to me, it looks like a very smart group of kids, and it looks like maybe that's an instructional problem, because they're absolutely excelling in other subjects and struggling in that one subject.
Or
Am
maybe test taking skills versus not.
But how'd they
Like they
kill
don't
it in
have
reading and
knowledge.
language usage? I mean,
Well, and even even when Mr. Stewart and I were sitting and doing the classes in Infinite Campus, you know, because once they hit sixth grade, you have an accelerated track, and then you have an on-grade level track. So when we had students that we needed to shift over to the accelerated track, and even before Ms. Thorne left, we were sitting there going through their milestone scores, and there were a heavy percentage of them that scored a level 2, which is just it's like you're developing. So you have level 1 that's beginning, it's not a passing score. You have level 2 that's, they're developing. You have level 3 that's proficient, and then level 4 that's beyond grade level. And it was really tough finding, because it was hard to justify putting a student in an accelerated math that scored a level 2 on the milestone. So it was really, we had a big percentage that did score a level 2. One thing that I think may help this group here is that some of that struggling class size is smaller than the accelerated class size. So there's not as many students. So hopefully that's gonna help here. Right here, I mean, there's just some strong kids. So I was surprised about the 13%. So this is something we're just gonna keep our eye on and get with Ms. Tyberski about. And a lot of them that came this morning we're sixth graders for the upper school math lab.
So Ms. Tversky's teaching the accelerated?
She's
or
6,
the-
7, and then, Ms. Brooks does 7, 8. But yes, Tversky does the accelerated sixth grade group, and then Brooks does an accelerated, well, the high school courses that we're gonna talk about. Personnel changes, I didn't put this up here, but personnel changes, we did hire a gifted teacher, her name is Miss Kessler. She is currently going through the gifted endorsement, which I checked with the state of Georgia, that's fine. She just has to be finished with her gifted endorsement classes by the end of the year. So she started pulling students last week. We have hired a new business manager, which is Ms. Mullinex, Jennifer Mullinex. And then we have also hired an operations manager, which is Celeste McGee. We do have 2 positions that we need to have filled, which is a part-time technology, support, so it's our IT, and then an office administrator. We are finishing up the interviews for the office administrator position by hopefully the end of this week, and we'll have a decision made at the beginning of next week. We've received no, applicants for the part-time IT person.
What is outsourcing?
Say that again?
What is outsourcing?
Out-
IT support, yeah, outsource it.
Country.
Contract it to a company.
That is always an option.
Imagine you get better support doing that rather than bring someone in.
Yes,
Because we would only bring it in as a part-time role, right?
Right.
yes, cause it's not, and even when I talked to Mr. Stewart, I mean, because the previous person was working 32 hours, but it's really not, you don't need the 32 hours.
Right.
So I think there's gonna be heavy parts of the year, like testing times and map testing, milestone, beginning of year, ending,
Schedule
end of
that
year,
out.
yeah. But other than that, it's pretty, you know, it should just be pretty calm. I think Tyler knows somebody that might be interested, but he has not contacted me yet, so, he was gonna check with him and see.
Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend even in that case, cause you have so few applicants, I'd recommend getting a bid from a company to do it part-time. I think there's some around the area. I'm more than happy to help go
Okay.
through what the requirements are as well.
That'd be great.
Cause I think it's something we probably get more value for the dollar with an outsource agreement.
Yeah.
And it is nice that the outsourcing agreement would really allow you to surge.
So
you know,
up and down based
When
on
you
how-
need the support, they're here. If you know you got a couple slow weeks, then, you know, they're available via phone if you need.
So you're not stuck at 15 hours a week, you can be 30 hours one week and 0 the next.
Right. And Mr. Willis was learning a good bit, so he knows a good bit, but the thing with Mr. Willis is his top priority are the students, his class. So I just don't wanna take him too much away from that, because his focus needs to be the students.
But at least you have someone here local who
Right.
has an idea of what's going on.
Correct.
And can convey that to, yeah, so.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
happy to help if you need help with that.
No, that'd be great, I would love your help with that. Yeah. And then the last thing, so changes to the bank statement, we do need to put these notes in the bank statement, print it out tonight, sign it, and then I need to send it to Ms. Reyes at Synovus. Remove Amy Jones as a signer. And Esther Goss, myself, and Jennifer Mullinex have all been to the bank, and we are approved signers. And I can give you this, Ms. Ferguson. We need to close the credit card for Amy Jones, open the credit card for Jennifer Mullinex, which that's in the process. But one thing, they still had they had Simon Hukin as the, administrator for the online banking.
Who's that?
He was year
Remember?
one.
The founding board member or?
Yes, year one. So, it needs to be put in, and I'll just give you this so that you can copy it. I need to be the administrator for the online
So I'm gonna copy
banking.
it out of here.
Oh, you got it, okay. So that's the final thing for me, is that, they still, even though I took that letter last week, Ms. Reyes said to please,
Oh, we put that on the first one, the first time?
right, but then Amy left, so then we're adding Jennifer, and
No,
then.
Mr. Hukin, we put that in the minutes
I
the first
thought
time.
so, because
I'm
we
looking at
had,
it, cause I'm
we
typing
had
all of those minutes right
Joe
now.
Star and
Yeah, so I have that the first time, the minutes that Eric signed for July, we've had that written right here in the
I
bullets.
thought so,
We'll
because
put 'em
I
again,
said,
so we
yeah, I
got one
said,
document.
I thought
We'll
we
submit it
handled
again.
this, so,
Make it easy
yes.
for 'em.
So if we can
Do
print
we-
that and sign it tonight, that would be.
Do they want us to vote on that? I mean.
She said it just needed to be in the minutes,
And
printed
signed.
and signed by the board members. So I was like, got it, I'm on it.
We can do that.
Yeah, and that's all for me.
Very good. Academic committee update. So there is one topic of discussion under academic committee, and that's, it was, I guess, brought to the attention this last month that there is a lack of clarity, certainly at the entire Fayette County school district level. It's not just a Liberty Tech issue about what the rules are around high school credit. So I just wanted to discuss this as a board to make sure that conceptually we had alignment. I'm not 100% sure that have full alignment on what we are allowed to and not allowed to do, but I figure if we have a conceptual alignment as a board, then we can start to try and move in that direction, but, so the issue that came up is that in the first couple years of the school, we have these high school credit classes in both math and science and Spanish. Are those the three high school credit classes?
Mm-hmm, but the big ones are the ELA, the math, and the science. I don't think Spanish is
Okay. ELA, math, and science. So in those first couple of years, every child that took those classes were given the option of whether or not they would take the end of year exam, which would then make them eligible. And this part, you gotta correct me if I'm wrong here. So did they all just, even after they took the exam, could they still make the decision whether or not they would have that count for credit, or were they making that decision prior to taking the test?
That I'm not 100% certain. Now, so we had an issue come up with a transcript on a 9th grader. And so I talked to one of the counselors at Whitewater High School. Been round and round with a lady at the State Charter Commission. Ms. Reynolds has talked to several people at the state level. So, what Fayette County does is so you have middle schoolers who take these high school courses, and then they are given the option to keep the credit or drop the credit prior to the transcripts being signed off on by superintendent. So the only thing I can find on the Georgia DOE is that it says middle school students, because what we were doing last year, we gave some students the option to opt out of the end of course, or the EOC. So some students were given the option to opt out and some students were not. So this is on Georgia DOE website. It says middle school students who are enrolled in one or more of these courses are required to take the associated end of course measure. If enrolled in an ELA, mathematics, and or science end of course, these middle school students will not take the corresponding content area end of grade measure. So they have to take the end of course. They cannot take the end of grade, which is like what your 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders take, and your 6th and 7th graders, and your other 8th graders. So what we've been told by Katie Manthe at State Charter is, once a student takes an end of course as an 8th grader, they cannot retake the end of course assessment as a 9th grader. But that is what Fayette County is doing, because they'll take it, then they give the parents the option, do you want this credit, do you not want it? If they want it and they pass, they give them a 1 on the transcript. If they don't, they give them a 0. So we've been talking, so we need to come up with something so that we can, it affects about 15 of our 8th graders, but we need to have a meeting with those 15 families to say, this is what we've discovered. So if you want your child to opt out of this high school course, then we need to do it now and get them just out of the physical science course for science and put them in just 8th grade science.
And I guess this this is the struggle I have, and again, I'm, full disclosure, you know, I'm one of these 15, so I have maybe I have to recuse myself, because I have a vested interest here, but, the thing that I struggle with is, I know that a lot of the folks that push their kids in this direction, push them in the direction with hey, you know, they took the accelerated, 7th grade class, which was basically 8th grade math, and so your choice is, all right, I have them retake the 8th grade math that they just got done taking, so they will learn 0 new content for the entire school year, or the way it used to be was, you could push them towards this high school class. If things didn't go well, if they struggled with the material, if they weren't ready, then you would say, okay, never mind, you'll take this one again, so it's not gonna go on your high school transcript, which is obviously pertinent for college applications and things like that, but it gave you the chance to push them without it being, you know, the risk of impacting a high school transcript. Now what it's sounding like we're getting to is, you know, you have to get to that spot where it's, all right, you're either all in, there's no getting off the train once you get on, this is no doubt gonna be on your college transcript, or you retake the same class, and so I'm struggling with that.
Sorry, in the document you read, did it say, I thought it said, if you take the end of course exam, you can't take the end of.
Grade.
End of
Right,
grade?
so if you're in a high
But-
school course, you have to take end of course, which is,
Well, sorry, my question is, can you take the class and just take the end of grade test, instead of the end of course test?
because what happens is in high school, you don't have end of grade anymore.
Okay.
You have end of course, which is 20% of your overall grade. So even our 8th graders, at the end of the year, they take the end of course instead of the end of grade. So 80% of their grade is classwork, and 20% is what they scored on the end of course.
So there's no way to, you know, call it, half advanced math, it's the same content at the end of the year,
Right.
these will take this test, these will take this test.
Because we were allowing students to opt out of
Right.
end of course, which this says you can't do that. But then, so Faye, and when I talked to the counselor at Whitewater, she said, and I'm not saying what we do is right. She said, this is just how we've always done it. So do we follow Fayette County's suit and give the parents the option? Because before I sign off on the transcripts as superintendent, we just say, okay, so student A, parents said, student scored a 2, which is technically passing, but the parents say, I don't want that, I want them to retake it. We put a 0 for the transcript, and then send them on, because apparently in Fayette County, it's not stopping them from taking the end of course.
Cause in full disclosure, I mean, I think, from what we can tell, all of the middle schools in Fayette County, that's the way they do it.
Yes.
Well, we have alignment from the Fayette County Superintendent on, isn't that where it sits for the high school?
Well, we're not technically part of Fayette.
Right, but the students will be, like, if we get alignment on.
Like almost 60% of.
Yeah, so in fact, at Whitewater, Whitewater's the high school that we were talking to about
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one. They had a specific pre-printed form for it,
Yes.
because it happened all the time. They said, here's the form, go fill it out.
Yes, and somebody from the state that Donna was talking to was like, what are you talking about? That, they can't do that. So we're getting different,
Yeah.
But I would think
No.
the just superintendent of the district of Fayette County would have better information than high school, I'm assuming.
I don't know, but.
I don't know that he would necessarily,
I mean,
I'm
in-
assuming that would be the,
We're not only feeding Fayette high schools either.
We're not only.
Right, so we need to double check with the.
Yeah.
So we would have to,
when.
I agree, I think we don't want our students to be playing the game with a different set of rules than the other middle schoolers that they're going to high school with.
right.
But we've got the dynamic of we're feeding more than one county
That's true.
system.
And see, the problem is some of these parents want the credit removed. Well, the state really frowns upon
Right.
removing a credit after a superintendent has signed off on it. The state,
Now, that one I don't think should ever happen.
right, so,
Like,
and that's
You
what.
get one chance to say yes or no, and
Right.
once it's signed off, it is.
And state charter has said, we are not gonna differ from the state. Like, it's not gonna be like, well, this is state policy for this, and this is state charters. Like Katie Manthe said, we will, like,
We follow high-performing school
right,
districts.
we're not going to change the policy. But then she also said on the particular student that we were talking about, she said, I don't know if the parents or the counselor at the other school knows this, but if they've taken end of course and they sit through, say it's physical science, so we have a student that takes physical science, scores a 2 as an 8th grader, they go to Fayette County High School as a 9th grader, they retake physical science. According to her, they're not supposed to be able to take the end of course again, and they're supposed to receive a 0 in the course. And she said, I don't know if the other schools and counselors like that you're talking to knows this, and I'm like,
I mean, but clearly those high schools can't be doing that.
well,
I
that's
mean,
what
you
I'm
would-
saying, the
you'd have-
all of Fayette County's doing it,
you'd have
then it's
parents
gotta be,
freaking out if that
right,
happened. So,
right.
I guess we gotta align to what the state says.
well, but to me, there's so much ambiguity,
Mhm.
because, you know, it's sort of like one of those things that if you wanna find a group that agrees with any point,
Yeah.
you could find a group that agrees with your perspective, which is why, I guess, from my point of view, I almost wanna talk, you know, as a group about conceptually, where do we think we align with? Just because, yeah, again, there's different camps and,
No, I get it.
but I also think, regardless of what we decide, I think it is important that we decide soon and communicate out to the families that, hey, this is how this is gonna work, these are the rules around it. And if the game's changing, I mean, we just need to give them the choice.
Yeah, there's no
on what they
point
want.
where you can,
Cause if you're in that high school course, you have to take the end of course.
at the point of entries, or like, hey, you've got 6 weeks before you can drop and go back to my college days, but.
Yes, there is drop in.
Not on, it was like, literally, I was digging one day,
Yeah.
because that's the thing, when you talk to the state, 3 people can tell you the same thing, and then you hit that 4th person, and you're like, okay, well.
Yeah.
So it's still no one person's call or interpretation of theirs.
So, I will be more than happy to reach out to a couple of people, and, I know the Pike County Superintendent, so I can call him and just say, I know Pike's little, but, hey, what do you guys do for this
What's our-
policy? I think we have one.
Fayette,
What I was thinking,
Clayton, Spalding.
Clayton, Spalding would be the top
Fayette,
3,
Clayton, Spalding.
based on your
Yep,
dashboard.
definitely the big 3. I mean, and that's almost 75% of our population.
So I can make some phone calls and see if,
Well, then there's maybe even like Trinity too. I don't want to be feed there, but they have to operate within the state guidelines, like, similar to us. But don't they do?
do they?
Do they have to? They still have to for graduation requirements, don't they?
Oh, yeah, just the.
So but they don't have the county support. That would be an interesting person to get perspective from.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's so
It's kind of a big deal.
there's so much ambiguity, because again, Fayette County is a high-performing school district,
Yeah.
and they have a very clear, uniform interpretation here, but it's totally different from what the state is saying.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that was one thing that I wanted to bring up, and maybe, so we'll probably continue to work on that, I guess, this next month, because I don't think there is a clear answer on it. And we probably need more information before we can come to a vision statement around it.
I'll make some phone calls, and then as I get information, I'll just send it out to the board, just as it comes in, so. It probably would be better to make a decision prior to the next board meeting,
That's true.
and then meet with the families, maybe early October.
Yep. Agreed. That is it for academic committee, development committee.
So the development committee, we met today as normal, a golf tournament, last meeting we had changed the date to October the 5th at, 2 p.m. at Whitewater. We are still seeking sponsorship from local businesses at this time, as far as whole sponsors. We do have the food and snacks covered, from Publix, and Chick-fil-A, is our lunch sponsor. We've gotten Kenny, Hammer, his company is a whole sponsor, so we've got things trickling
We
in.
just got another whole sponsor.
Another whole sponsor, two actually, in our meet,
Yeah.
two additional whole
Two more.
sponsors.
Works that quick.
Yes,
the
and
text
then we
earlier.
have, several parents that are interested, Mrs. Christie, she had went out at the Carline a couple times and actually, got some donations right on the spot. And, some parents who are interested in signing up, so I have the list, and I'm gonna follow up with them to start, adding them to teams that we kinda have one or two people on to fill those teams, so it's coming together. Just the help we need is putting the word out and trying to get more whole sponsors, because that's where we earn most of the money from. The annual fund will kick off, on exhibition night, and that's just the request for participation. Like we did last year, we had 86% participation rate from our families that will help us with the grant writing that we are doing. So, that will help us with the grant writing we're doing. So the request for participation this year will be $5 per family, and hopefully we can get to 100%, we'll see. We will talk today about coming up with like a survey to the students that we can maybe send to Mr. Willis, and he can have them do at the beginning of their class, where they get to select, like we give them 3 options of what they'd like to win as the prize for the participation campaign, and they can vote in his class if we just give him the link, so. He already has them doing things when they first sit down, so. And then we have the Chick-fil-A Spirit Night, our first one of the year, coming up next Tuesday, September 17th. We implemented the idea Mrs. King came up with this summer as far as having a classroom, select one of the Chick-fil-A nights, and all the proceeds from that Chick-fil-A night will go directly to that grade level. So the first class that is up, the kindergarten, class, and they were our winners several times last year anyway. They have a good participation rate, but the proceeds from next week will go to them. And we also have the contest in play with Chick-fil-A, where the class that has the most attendance, they get Chick-fil-A cards, like the little comp cards. So now we have 2 things going for that. So hopefully that, our changes will help get more families out, and we can keep at least the same amount or get more this year. And also remind that people, you don't actually have to go in to have the credit count. So anyone who shows up at Chick-fil-A Town Center between 5 and 7 on next Tuesday, anything that's purchased during that time frame will go toward our proceeds. So you can just do the drive-through, tell your grandparents, tell them to go, get an ice cream or something that's gonna be really hot next week. So, that, and then the other thing we have were discussion on the Abby's Closet and the Dignity stores. So Abby's Closet, we talked about last time, is a opportunity for the school to provide school supplies to students who may be in need. It's a local organization that Mr. Hammer had, gotten contact for. And then Dignity Store is another local organization, that offers like hygiene and those types of supplies to students who are in need. So the school is interested. We don't have a high population of students that need those services, but a need is there. And, those organizations do a really great job in the community. Right now, we need to find space. So our issue is actually, we don't have anywhere to lock up the items. So as some things kind of transition in the next month or so, we'll see if we can find some space. Or we talked about maybe getting one of those locked closets. Todd was talking about maybe from IKEA or somewhere. As long as you can lock it up and keep it under control, then we may be able to use that as an option. So we'll explore that and have an update at the next meeting. That's it.
All right, Finance Committee.
Esther, you're on.
We have completed the, 2018-19 audit, and that's submitted. There were, right now, there were a few journal entries the auditor had found. I'm gonna follow up with him and get a little bit more detail on these. I think it was just toward the end of last week when this stuff was
still have any, the CSP grant is completely run its course, right? We're 100% spent out, no?
We have $5,700, we're closing that out in November. So we, have the padding for the gym walls, but nobody, there was nobody to install it. So we have 57, I have the exact amount, so Ms. Mullinex is in the process of trying to find someone to hang the padding. We talked to, Alan with Connect, because he thought if he looked at it, he might be able to hang it, we could pay Connect, but after he looked at it, he said, yeah, I can't hang that. So Ms. Mullinex is in the process, and then I think we're closing that out by November.
Other than the $5,700, no other outstanding invoices, everything's been reimbursed, paid?
As far as I know, everything, I know there was one invoice that they were waiting on the company to, I guess, cash the check, but as far as I know, everything else is good to go.
That would be my first suggestion, that we look at any potential liabilities that are outstanding. I would like to think that the auditor did his due diligence, and that the cash balance up to June is correct. He would have found any liabilities and had a journal entries for that. But we're gonna look into that in a little more detail, I think.
I mean, it is a good problem to have. Of all the problems we're dealing with, I like this one the most.
Very, very good, or very, very bad.
We're gonna think positive.
Yeah, okay, I'm cool with that.
We're going positive.
Okay,
Okay, well, that was,
thanks, Esther.
okay.
Governance committee, so do you wanna share the pre-K update from Kenny?
Sure. Right, so Kenny sent an update earlier today. He said he's been continuing to check, decal site for the application, and as expected, it's still not open for next year. He will continue to check every Monday, and he started creating the tool to forecast the 4-year-olds within the area. More to come on that in the future. And then I gave the update on Abby's Closet and Golf Fundraiser through our committee.
One other update for governance committee, so I'll state the obvious here, Michael Boylan did send me his resignation. Now, he had typed up a letter, which he said he was gonna send to the entire board. Has not happened, but in the note he sent to me, he did say that, effective September, he would be resigning, and so we do need to, fill that position, because we do need to have a secretary for the board. And Kenny and I discussed this a little bit, and I think our thought was that, Andrea is already doing a substantial amount of those tasks already, doing a good job of helping keep us organized. The risk with her moving into the secretary role had always been that she was also the one that was able to attend all of the disciplinary hearings. So Tony and I had a conversation, because his schedule allows him flexibility that I think a lot of our schedules have not allowed. So the thought process was that, and hopefully with the new restorative practices.
I'm not to see him for
Minimize
that.
that.
Hopefully we're not gonna see a
For that
whole lot of
reason.
them. But I think that the thought process was having Andrea move into the secretary role, and Tony would be able to backfill for the disciplinary hearings. So, I don't know if we wanna have, should we open that up to discussion? Cause that is something that, we're gonna go by the bylaws that say that as those positions are vacated, we can backfill them, and I believe that this has to be dealt with in open session rather than executive session, so.
Only question I have, just, Andrea, from your perspective, are you the governance chair?
No, Eric is.
Eric is, I'm governance now. So
Yeah.
you're development and secretary then?
Yes, and so what I'm
Academic and governance?
going to do,
A lot of eggs in a few baskets.
yes, so.
No, I'm not on that.
No, you're
yeah.
development and secretary.
So Kenny is gonna take over governance
Okay.
committee. I think he should share that one, and I'll stay on
Academic.
academics.
Okay.
And then, I'd also talk to Tony a little bit. I think Tony might be coming over to academics too, because of the flexibility that his schedule allows. That's I think a big win there, so.
Do we have,
Cause we're supposed to serve on at least two committees.
At least two, but you should not chair more than one, which is why
One, right.
Kenny really needs to take governance.
Right.
'Cause
who's the chair of those? Checking. Cool, yeah, no, that's great.
So I motion, that we, ratify or
Confirm?
confirm,
There you go.
Andrea Ferguson as the board secretary.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Yep, are you gonna vote on that one?
You abstain?
Can't vote for myself, right?
I think
Sure,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, you can abstain.
I was like, I didn't think you could.
Any opposed?
Nope.
All right, motion passes. So as part of governance committee, we should probably talk about mandated reporter training as well.
So I send out the link
I-
to everyone to click on the link, go back to the school website. You print off the last page of the volunteer training, and then the second thing is you click the link to go to Pro Solutions, the same one we did last year,
So
and take the training.
last year, so I tried to do it today, and last year, it seemed like it was really, as soon as I clicked on it, I was like in the training, I watched the video, and today when I click the link, I'm at this massive list of
That's
classes,
because
and I.
when we took it last year, like earlier in the summer, it was a different link. And then
Yeah,
when the
it's
school
kind of
year
one.
started, it switched over to the Pro Solutions link.
Okay.
So that's why.
And I searched for mandated reporter, and I went all these categories, and I never could find it, and
Did
so.
you copy paste the exact verbiage that was from the school website and paste it in there? Cause on the
I had a
school,
hard time trying to find it too.
Whoa.
I was there and I was slightly overwhelmed by the amount of classes.
so on the school website, we have the exact instructions. You go, it
So
says go to
I
Pro
was
Solutions. We can
following
talk
the
about it.
PTO flyer here. But, all right, and.
So I can help you guys after the meeting and make sure we all can
We
get
might
on
need some
here.
remedial training.
That's
for-
okay. We can work together on that, right after the meeting, and, we'll get it taken care of.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was a reminder I had, and the other thing is I attended the State of Georgia Charter Schools, meeting in Atlanta on August 19th. The key changes are where there's going to be webinars and classes offered for a financial certification program. So I know I've seen, information on how to sign up for that in the Friday Charter Schools newsletter that we received. So if you're interested in that and learning more about how to maintain the finances for a charter school, anyone can take the certification, classes.
I mean, is it specifically intended for like bookkeepers
It
and
is.
things like that?
It
We
is,
should
but
make
it's for
sure we-
anyone who wants to learn more about it, and so some are offered in person, and some are offered on this webinar that's coming up toward the end of the month.
Are those free or is
That, I was
there?
just saying, the financial, it's like 6 courses, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is that the fact that they're
We got some
offering.
people, we gotta get to those.
Yes,
Yes, so it's no
cause I was
fees.
thinking about Celesta,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jennifer too, probably, I mean.
Mhm.
yeah, cause I saw that too.
Where did you see this, the information on that training?
When I went to the conference, and then also it's been coming every Friday on the Georgia State Charter Schools newsletter.
Okay.
So it says register, I can forward the newsletter, I thought we had all signed up, put with the board address in it, but, register for the Financial Management Certification Program is designed to benefit charter school leaders and those in charge of school finances. However, registration is open to all interested charter school personnel and board members. So it offers rigorous content available, participants will learn the best practices to ensure sound fiscal management, how to monitor audits, stay compliant, how to verify QBE funding, and much more. It's gonna be led by the former KIT Metro Atlanta CFO, Erica Ellison, and, they will provide scholarships for participants in schools authorized by SCSD. Participants who pay for the full 6-course program upfront will receive a 10% discount. The first offering starts in October at Westside Atlanta Charter School. So we need to look into that and see if we can make sure we at least get the main 2 people to go.
Very good. All right. Items requiring a vote. I motion that we approve the August minutes as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything else that requires a vote at this time?
So in the July meeting, we brought up that we needed to vote in Mr. Willis for the teacher representative to replace Mrs. King. And then you requested that we allow the teachers to nominate him, but we didn't follow up last month,
That's a
even though it's
Very
here.
true
But we should put it
observation.
on the minutes.
Did the teachers have a chance to elect their representative?
They're good with
Talk in a whispered
They're good. They're good.
Okay, well,
So I'll put it in a note right now.
I vote, or, let's see, I vote that we, sustain Mr. Wilson as the
Willis.
teacher, Willis.
You've been replaced already.
Already replaced in 5 seconds.
As
Mr. Wilson?
the teacher representative.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Willis, for your willingness to
He's
join us.
official now.
Yay. With it come all the rights and privileges associated with the teacher representative. Use them wisely.
Yes, sir.
All right, I motion that we adjourn for executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The motion passes.